How's it going, guys? Welcome back to the channel and welcome to a video featuring my 1995 Chevy G20 conversion van, a van that I picked up several years ago and has been nothing but phenomenal for our family. We're able to take the dogs to parks, take vacations, and I've even daily driven this car on short term. So a great vehicle, has not let me down yet. But I want to maintain everything and keep everything up to date, specifically things that will fail eventually. And one of those kind of came up, and that's what we're making this video for. And that would be the starter. So several times I went to start this car and got nothing but clicks. Originally, I thought the battery was dying on me. Had that tested, charged actually a couple of times, and it continued to do it. And then it would start out of nowhere. So the other day, it just did it to me and wouldn't go away. Went ahead and tapped on the starter, and a few clicks later it started up, so I figured it's got to be the starter. Now I went ahead and picked up this Duralast starter, which from what I've seen online has shot up in price because I paid $169 before the $40 core, so putting me at about 130 bucks, and people were saying you can pick them up for about 40-50 bucks just several years ago on forums. So they've definitely gone up quite a bit. Now, we're going to go ahead and pop this in. This is my first time changing a starter on a 350 Chevy. So I got online. There are shims that you need to do on this. So a little bit different than starters I've done in the past, where you definitely have to make sure you shim this properly. And we're going to go ahead and use what they've shimmed the vehicle with currently as a guide, because I feel like that's the most successful way I've seen other videos and on the forum. So we're going to start with that. Now, I went ahead and, as you can see, painted our shaft here. That was another video that I saw, but they had an open case on the end here, so it might have been an older style starter, I'm not sure. But I was able to get some paint in there. And what that's gonna do is, if the shim is not correct, it's gonna tell us where the starter gear is landing. So it'll wear off where it's landing. So hopefully this will be a good guide for us. If not, we're gonna go by sound. So if it gives us a grinding sound, we know we probably gotta shim it back. And if it's giving us a more whining noise where it doesn't seem like it's engaging properly, we definitely want to bring it in. So we're gonna have to kind of use that as a guide, and hopefully that works out. It seemed to work out for other people. So before we get started, I do want to point out that I opened up the box, and there's a little stop thing here that tells you other symptoms it could be. And this is why I'm also going to change out my crank position sensor, because if you look here, other symptoms could be no start. This is kind of cool. They threw this in the box, and then it gives you a part number and a part description for GM to change out your crank position sensor. So definitely something I'm going to change out as well, just because I don't want to get stuck anywhere. And if that's failing as well, I don't want to get stranded. But this is a wear out part, so we're going to change this regardless, because I'm hoping to get years and years out of this new starter without any issues. So let's go ahead and drop down the old starter. Went ahead and got under there, and a 9/16 is what the main bolts are. And once we get it down, there's a positive and a negative. That kind of brings me to the point that you want to make sure you remove your negative battery cable before starting this, so that you don't shock yourselves, because there is a main power and a main ground going to your starter. So let's go ahead and pull that down, pull our ground and positive off the starter, hook up the new starter, slide it in, and bolt it in, and see what we get as far as shims and stuff like that. I'll fill you guys in. And obviously this van is a very heavy vehicle, so use extra precautions when you're sliding up underneath it. You can see I have my wheel ramps in place. I have my jack kind of set on there, and I've got a very heavy duty jack stand right in the middle on the main support. So I feel very comfortable now sliding up underneath here and getting that starter out. All right, so upon first inspection, this starter seems to be a lot smaller than the new one, and I'll pull this out and show you guys. But the new one does slide up in there. Everything lines up. Your shims would typically go across these two bolts, but there were no shims in place, so we're going to start with no shims. Our larger cable here is a 1/2-inch bolt from what I tested, so we'll take that one off right now. And the smaller one that's on the inside there, I got to test that, but it's definitely a smaller socket that's going to have to go in there. And the last little nut we need to get off is 5/16. So get yourself a 5/16 socket or open end wrench and get that one off. Well, guys, like I said, you can see there is a significant difference in size, but that is in the casing and motor. The shaft itself and the bolt holes line up identical. And like I said, I slid this in, everything seemed to line up perfectly. And you can see here, there's some sort of heat shield. And it looks like if I get this off, we can bolt up our heat shield. And it's just got some standard bolts on this side versus those torque style inward bits. So let me see if I can get this off and move it over if possible, and then we'll slide this up in there. All right, I got everything put back together. Was not able to get that heat shield on there, but I'm hoping we're gonna be okay without it. Now let's go ahead and slide this back in and connect our long bolts that hold this in. Should be pretty simple. Well, guys, that sounded like success to me. The starter sounded great. Now, we could drop it down and check to see if we needed to shim it at all. But like I said, the original starter had no shims. It matched up bolt hole wise, and the distance between where the shaft comes out and all that seemed to be exactly the same size. So I'm not going to mess around with it and cause any issues. And like I said, though, this is the first time I've swapped out a starter where it could possibly need shims. So don't go by what I say. You could drop it back down and use that mark like I showed you with the paint. See if it needs to be shimmed at all. And if you had shims in there, obviously go by how many shims were already in there, because every vehicle is going to be different, obviously. But I'm happy with what I have here. I'm going to run with it. And like I said, I'm going to go ahead and change out that crank position sensor just as a precautionary, because this is my travel vehicle and I don't want to get stuck on the road and have a simple part that could be swapped out very easily create that issue. But now we've got the big one out of the way. Something I would not want to do on the road underneath the vehicle is done. So the starter is completely swapped out. And now I get to move on to other fun projects for this van. You guys will be seeing some upcoming videos. You guys have an awesome day, a blessed week, and I'll catch you on the next video.